Hello viewers at home and those tuning in on Facebook Live. Thank you once again for choosing BrandPlus as your preferred station today. On this particular episode, I'm going to be doing a very simple dish. We're going to be making a one-pot spaghetti. My name is Chef Andy and welcome to the show. We're going to proceed to begin by introducing the ingredients we'll be working with today, and starting from the very front, I've got about 60 grams of butter. I've also got some grated Parmesan cheese, some minced basil leaves, and 2 medium-sized red onions. And on the small bowls, we're also going to be incorporating some pepper flakes, some cumin powder, some tomato puree, some garlic powder, some black pepper powder, and some garlic. We're also going to require some salt for seasoning, some cherry tomatoes, and about a small handful of number 5 spaghetti, some oil to cook with, and of course some water to cook your pasta in. So we're going to take a break now, giving you a bit of time to prepare for the show. Grab your pens and papers if you're going to be taking notes, and we'll see you after a short while. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who are just tuning in, we just finished introducing the ingredients before us. We're going to be making a one-pot spaghetti, as I mentioned, so it's something you may actually learn a few tips and tricks on. So we're going to start very easily by proceeding to heat our water. Remember, you do actually need to allow your water to come to the boil to make your pasta. So for that, I'm going to add about 2 cups of water to the pot, and we're going to allow that to boil. And while that continues, I'm also going to proceed to heat up another pan, which we're going to be cooking some of our condiments in. So very simply, grab a sharp knife and proceed to chop up your garlic and your red onions, beginning with your red onion. Now you want to chop this as fine as possible. So for this, you will incorporate a very simple technique of chopping, which you'll be able to see from the cameras. Proceed to chop that a little finer towards the root, and proceed to discard the root end. And proceed to do the same with the other onion. Of course, cutting a few slits off the top and cutting across almost to the end, and proceed by chopping that a little finer. Of course, it is very easy to get used to chopping onions. A trick I always share with you on the show: you can alternatively peel your onion and rinse it under the tap. You can also actually just throw them in the freezer briefly before you begin to chop. It will actually allow for you to do so without having any tears in your eyes. So very simply, proceed to add a bit of oil to your pan and about a tablespoon to your water. And that is actually going to allow for your pasta to cook without sticking. To this water, proceed to add about a teaspoon of salt and allow to proceed to come to the boil. And while that continues, we're going to proceed to add onions to our pan. Proceed to toss that quickly and allow for them to sweat really briefly Proceed next to add about 5 to 6 cloves of some garlic. Now this particular recipe is actually a favorite for kids below the age of 8. A lot of times I've actually had the same request made to myself with my own daughter, and she particularly loves the idea of ketchup with her spaghetti. Once chopped up nice and fine, proceed to add that to your pan with the onion and proceed to toss once more. Proceed to allow the garlic to just to come to its fragrant state. And while that continues, we're also going to proceed to add some of our other ingredients. Starting off with about 1/3 of a teaspoon of some tomato paste. Proceed also to add your cumin powder, your garlic powder, and a small pinch of some black pepper. Using a wooden spoon, mix everything together in your pan. And once your onions, your garlic are nicely, beautifully fragrant, proceed to add a little bit of water. That should allow for you to cool your pan very, very gently, and also allow for you to dissolve your tomato paste. Now while that continues, we're also going to proceed to add our cherry tomatoes. So I'm going to grab about 5 pieces and proceed to cut those into halves. So you can also incorporate regular tomatoes for this recipe if you can't be able to find yourself some cherry tomatoes. Now proceed to add that to your mixture. And now last but not least, we're also going to add a small knob of butter to our mixture. That should allow for it to get a nice, beautiful velvetiness, and it will actually bring a nice, beautiful balance of flavor. So just proceed to allow that to continue cooking at medium heat. And now we're going to come back to our pot of water. Water is nicely boiling. So we're going to add our pasta just as it is. We're not going to break it, just cook it whole. Proceed to add that to your pot and allow for that to continue cooking. And to your to your other mixture here, you'll also proceed to season very lightly with some salt. And proceed to mix with a wooden spoon. Now for this particular recipe, very handy to also mention, this is one of the very simplest recipes you can actually use for a very light lunch, especially if you've got some young kids at home. It also really works out for a very simple dish that you can also be able to make in the nick of time, maybe in a small break after work, or even something that you can actually be able to carry with to work as a light lunch. Now we're just going to grab a spoon and proceed. Just bring down those pieces of pasta. And of course, moving your spoon very gently. That should allow for you to completely allow for all your pasta to really fall into the pan, or rather to come into contact with water without actually breaking your pasta. And at this stage you can allow to proceed to cook for another 4 to 5 minutes, which will bring us to a stage of actually draining them. So very importantly, always make sure to have one of these handy. Strainers do actually come in handy quite a bit, especially when draining your pasta. So you can actually be able to use a metallic sieve or a plastic sieve. It won't really make a difference. But remember to not put your plastic sieve next to any particular heat, because it will actually melt and it will actually ruin the mesh. So just back to the pasta, proceed to mix very gently and allow to continue cooking. Also, something to mention, always make sure to add enough water to your pot to allow your pasta to cook very gently. Now once your mixture is fried up and your tomatoes just begin to break, proceed to turn down your heat completely. And that should take you to the next stage where we're going to be incorporating our basil. So I'm going to add about 4 to 5 teaspoons. And remember, making your own basil puree is very simple. You can actually be able to just look around in your retail outlets around you. You can mix that in a jug just like this one and just blend them very quickly. I particularly like to blend them with a bit of olive oil, some garlic, salt and pepper to taste, and it does make a nice beautiful addition to any pasta sauces that you'll be making in the future. And particularly making your own puree will actually also last in the refrigerator a little longer, which will give you quite a bit of allowance to use it over and over again. Right, so just proceed to mix that together. Remember, you don't really want to begin to cook your basil as well. It will actually begin to change color quite fast, so be very vigilant about adding your basil. You can also just save a little more and even toss some in your pasta. It does give it a very beautiful flavor and a beautiful coat, and it also breaks down the monotony of that extreme white color. So just to come back to the pasta, this is now almost ready to come out. Going to just proceed to mix through and once that's just about ready and it's actually got a nice beautiful al denteness to it, or rather a nice beautiful bite, remember particularly something to mention: do not attempt to serve or to overcook your pasta, because it will actually become very mushy, and it will actually ruin that nice beautiful brittleness of the pasta. So be very vigilant about overcooking your pasta. And one handy particular trick I like to use is always have a sieve ready, so that once your pasta is hit just the right amount of temperature, you can take it out of the water very quickly and proceed to finish off your dish. Just proceed to mix that once more, and at this point you can proceed to turn down your gas completely and begin to lift your pasta right into the sieve, allowing it to drain the excess water. Once that is done, proceed to discard your water. And now very simply, just to finish off your dish, proceed to add your pasta while it's still hot. Using your wooden spoon, mixing very gently. And of course also proceed to fold in your ingredients, allowing for everything in the bottom to come to the top. And that should actually give you a nice beautiful color, bringing us to the end of the preparation of this very simple dish. Something I can also mention as well, I like to particularly serve this immediately from the pan. But before we get that far, we are going to take a break and just clear up our station. But when we do come back, I'll take you to the last and final process where we are going to proceed to plate, and I'll also share some very, very simple tips about some optional pasta you can use. So don't touch that dial. We'll be right back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who are just tuning in, we've just been doing this very beautiful one-pot spaghetti, and now we're at the last and final stage of plating. So very, very simply, with your pasta spoon, proceed to mix everything together. And now very, very simply proceed by grabbing your pasta. Of course, very, very handy tip as well when serving pasta, just proceed to roll it on the pan like so. It will make it very easy for you to lift. And just by lifting very gently, allow for the excess to fall onto the pan, and proceed to add that to your plate. And proceed to add the rest right over the top. Of course, always focusing on serving right at the center of the plate to really give it a nice, beautiful height. And very simply proceed to add your cherry tomatoes around the edges of your plate, giving your pasta a very, very beautiful, simple finish. And proceed to add all your other ingredients right over the top. Right, very, very simple technique. And once that is done, proceed to finish off by garnishing with some few chili flakes right over the edges. And last but not least, some grated Parmesan cheese, always a good complementary addition to any pasta dish. And also something very, very common, you may actually want to do so, but this is particularly for those who have a nice, beautiful affiliation to olive oil. You can also drizzle a little bit of olive oil over your pasta. It will also give it a nice, beautiful freshness, aroma, and it will actually give a very beautiful appearance. So from the studios, thank you once again for tuning in today. You have been watching BrandPlus TV, and the show is Lunch Guide. I am Chef Andy, and from the studios once more, thank you so much for tuning in. I will remind you to check out the Facebook page. Do see what's in store for you. You can also check out our YouTube channel. Plenty of videos we've done in the past. I'm sure you will be able to find something that suits your very, very, very simple need. But from here, thank you once again, and until the next episode, God bless and see you soon.